All right.
Rolling?
Yep, we're rolling.
Okay, so we're at the washing stage of the artifact processing. So we've got a very rare find for us, which is an intact bottle, completely intact. The neck is intact, the base is intact. This will tell us so much. There's a lot of guides that tell us how to date a bottle and how to type a bottle, but they all rely on the fact that you have a complete bottle in front of you. We are never that lucky. We have shards, we have tiny pieces, and we can kind of piece together some information, but this is really rare for us. So as you can see, we've got actually quite a bit of embossed lettering as well. It says here honey and almond cream, Heinz. So I think we've got a rough date to sort of the early 20th century, 1910s, 1920s. So once we get to the cataloging stage, we'll be doing a lot more research to fine-tune that date and get as much information as we can. When I'm washing it, it's glass. It's a pretty resilient material, and it's historical archaeology, so it's quite secure. It's not falling apart in my hands, so I'm going to be using a wet washing technique. But the one thing I want to be careful of is there's a lot of really beautiful staining here. So when we're here, we don't necessarily want to make the artifacts pristine. We want to make, or pretty, we want to make them visible. So, clean up some of this lettering, make that, get some of the obvious dirt off the way. But all of this stuff, this is now part of the story. This is now part of the artifact, and to remove it would be to remove the last part of this bottle's journey, essentially, and also would remove a lot of information. So a lot of this orange stuff, is probably iron oxide staining. So it's been near metal. It's been in the same context as wet metal. So in a soil where there's some metal nearby. So it's little things like that we want to make sure we don't lose as we're working on it. So we're just going to kind of gently, using this very high-tech piece of equipment, we're going to kind of and then it's just a game of patience, really. The other thing I want to be careful of is I'm trying not to get any water inside. As you can see, there seems to be a little bit of residue here. So that might give us, if we're going to go do a chemical analysis on this, that might give us an idea of what we might find of what this used to contain, although we think it contained a face cream, so honey and almond face cream. So I'm trying to make sure not to get anything inside, and getting water up here near the neck is going to be making the rusting worse, so I'm trying to... You also want to make sure not to submerge the artifact for exactly that reason as well. So a lot of the staining, I think, will be quite resilient, so I'm not too worried about, and it seems to be mostly on the inside. So I can go over the exterior pretty safely. Doesn't seem to be coming off. Yeah, that's all on the inside. If you run your finger over it, it's smooth, so I'm feeling glass, I'm not feeling staining. So here's a little bit of staining on the exterior. But again, what I always tell people is if you feel like you need to remove or use force to remove dirt or staining, don't. That's kind of a sign that it's not clay, it's not mud, it's actually something else. Another really helpful thing is that will tell us how this bottle was made is the seam lines. They might be a little bit tricky to see. We've got a seam line here. So when you make a bottle, because of its shape, because it's closed at the bottom, open at the top, you often need to put it into a mold. And when these two pieces of the mold come together, it's not a perfect match ever. So there's always a very thin line that you can see on the glass where the mold pressed. So there's another line here. And so when we're trying to date, this I think is intentional, this is embossing. Maybe. Actually, no, I'm not so sure. But we were actually found that the seam line runs across this bottle diagonally. So this would have been one half of the mold, this would have been the other half. Because as you can see, the seam line, instead of going down the middle, which is much more common, or this way, usually this way, it actually goes right along the edge. So someone was keeping this as a very intentional aesthetic choice, so that that line wasn't running down the middle of the glass. So that's a lot cleaner. That's going to be a lot easier for us to work with. Now, this really does seem like metal staining, so I'm not going to put any attention there. And yeah, there you go, nice clean bottle.